Hi, I'm Justin Dunn, and welcome to my show where I build and do fun things, and you just sit there with your keyboard and watch. I'm back out in the garage working on my Mitsubishi Eclipse GST. So now I gotta do some more work to the engine block. I have to delete the balance shafts. And I just got some parts in from Rock Auto, so I'm gonna see what I'm able to get done next. Felpro oil pan gasket, Felpro crankshaft seal, gates, water pump, Felpro crankshaft seal set, Engine Tech piston rings, male crankshaft bearings, these are 25 undersized, Cometic head gasket, Felpro crankshaft seal, intake manifold gasket set, exhaust manifold gasket set, the other camshaft seal, Mitsubishi OEM balance shaft stub, male rod bearings, these are 50 undersized. I'm just filming all of this stuff with a magic arm and my Canon T2i that I have clamped to the garage track. Now I'm going to be working on removing the balance shafts from my 4G63 turbo engine. These are the balance shafts, and when I delete them I'll be able to save a little bit of weight. This one is the one connected to the crankshaft through a balance shaft belt, and it has a potential for failing and causing the timing belt to jump or break. And this one is connected to the oil pump, which is driven off of the timing belt. Now, as you can see, when I removed the front oil pump housing, you can see one of the balance shafts came out with it. This one stayed inside the block. To remove the one connected to the oil pump housing, I just removed all of these bolts here, and I was able to remove the balance shaft from the oil pump. Now I'm going to first work on the front cover. This engine cover is also the oil pump, so I'm going to have to clean this out pretty thorough to make sure that there's no metal shavings or anything else. I want to make sure I have good oil pressure. Now you can see that this cover is really dirty, so I need to go through and scrape all this off. Man, this oil pump gasket got really brittle from the oil constantly riding on it. I can cut out the new gasket so it doesn't have that problem. A lot of guys even go as far as modifying the block in these areas so that they have better oil flow. I think just removing this gasket might actually improve oil flow a little bit. Now I'm going to try to soak it all in this mineral spirit. Now I'm going to try to remove these seals. So I wasn't able to get all of these pieces off of the front cover. I'm pretty sure if I were to sand it down or just continuously keep scraping with the razor blade, I could. This is another reason you might want to just buy a new cover, but I don't think these should leak too bad. This is part of the oil system, so if this does leak in some areas, it could potentially cause the engine oil pressure to be lower, but I'm going to be watching all of those things. I'm also not going to be relying on this car to get me to work. Now I gotta clean the oil pump. I'm gonna use some mineral spirits. I already have the pistons soaking in here, so I'm just gonna try to get a little bit of the mineral spirits from it and then put it in this little container. Now I'm gonna be using this brand new balance shaft, and this has a little tiny section on the end for you to be able to hold it, so that way whenever you put it in this gear, you can tighten it. I'm just going to mock this up. During final torquing, you want to put red Loctite on here. You want to notice the orientation of both of these gears, and there's this little tiny dot. Once you line them up perfectly, you drop it in place, and then you can put the cover on. This screw is a little tiny Phillips screw. All the rest of these are just regular hex heads. Alright, now so I'm going to take apart this gasket set. This is the crankshaft front seal set. I usually try to open up these boxes nicely, but it never happens. Make sure that there's nothing else in the box. So now this gasket I'm going to possibly modify to see if I can get it to not get submerged in oil. I'm going to try to remove these seals first. Yeah, this seal is a little bit harder to get off. I think I'm going to try to remove the oil pump first and then push it from the back side. Yes, that was a lot easier. Alright, now I'm going to put in this front crankshaft seal. I'm just going to tap it a bunch of times, really soft. I probably should be using like some kind of wood, but I'm going to try this first and see if this works. Alright, now I'm going to use this black gasket maker to put around the edges of this freeze plug, and then I'm just going to tap the freeze plug in where this other balance shaft was, and this should seal the area. And then later, I'm going to possibly even drill a hole in this freeze plug, and then maybe an AN fitting or something like that so I can put a breather on it, maybe get a little bit more pressure out of the crankcase. But I'm going to have to do a little bit more research to see what type of system I would need to make in order for that to work. Alright, so I'm going to try to remove this spot right here because oil's basically going to be going down this channel. Oh crap, I got a little bit of dirt on it. It'll be cut out though, so it won't matter. Alright, so I'm going to use a hammer, the end of it, like the ballpoint. I learned this from Jaffro Mobile's channel. He's also a DSM guy. And I'm just going to rub this along here, and this will give me a good outline. Now I can use a blade to cut this. That went at a little bit of an angle, but I'm just going to cut it straight and see what it looks like. Yeah, probably should have cut that a little bit more of at an angle instead of straight. And I don't think I cut all the way through the paper, so hopefully this doesn't tear. That should be good. Alright, so I got a new torque wrench just specifically for this rebuild. It is a Tecton torque wrench. I saw a lot of great reviews about this, and I was able to get it for a good price, and I figured I needed to get a new one to make sure that all of my torques are going to be in spec. Alright, so now I'm going to put together this oil pump. I already test fitted it with some grease, but I'm going to have to put a lot more in. So what I'm going to do to start out is I'm going to hold it together with these vice grips, and I just got to figure out how to put this clamp on the table so that I can torque it also. Alright, I'll hold it this way. And now I'm just going to torque this down to the table so that way it can't go anywhere. Alright, make sure that it's tight enough for me to be able to torque this down. And then I'm going to use this torque wrench to torque it down to spec. Now I'm going to torque this down to about 33 foot-pounds, and I put some red Loctite on. It moves around a little bit, so I'm going to try to just hold it still as best as I can. Alright, it clicked in place. We should be good to go. Now I'm going to put it in the oil pump. Before I do, I'm going to just lather it up with some nice grease. This will get everything going, and then once the oil pushes through, it should basically clean all this out. Now as I'm putting this in, it doesn't start out wanting to go in the right orientation, so you kind of have to move it a little bit to predict where it's going to fall in place. Now I was surprised when I pulled this apart that there's no gasket, so I'm just going to put it all back together the way I found it and torque it down. The hard part is going to be torquing down the Phillips nut. So what I ended up doing there was putting a hex style Phillips head in the torque wrench. And I torqued these all down to the same 33 foot-pounds. Now I keep forgetting to take off this gasket, so I guess that's what I'll work on now. Alright, so now I'm going to work on removing the bearings in the cylinder block. Now this bearing back here, you actually don't need to remove. I removed it because I wasn't paying attention, but there's actually no oil feed that goes to that particular bearing, so you can leave that one in place. As for this one, to remove the back one, you have to remove the front one first. I'm just using the old balance shaft and I'm pretty much destroying it because I'm not going to be using it again, but I'm just going to keep beating it around the edges like this. I have tried pretty much everything to try to get this out without using a balance shaft, and it is a big pain in the butt. I kept hitting it a little bit too soft and I couldn't figure out what was going on. I couldn't figure out why it wouldn't move, so I just kept hitting it, and it kept wanting to go in the middle of it. It kept wanting to go back in through the bearing, but I just kept hitting it, and eventually it started mushrooming the end of the bearing, so it wouldn't actually allow the shaft to go in the middle of the bearing again, and it started pushing it through all the way. Once I got that one through, I was able to start working on the inside one. The inside one seemed a lot easier. I think it was just because part of the block was guiding it through, and that bearing might have been a little bit small, but it came out really quick and easy.
Maybe I should have did all that before I got it machined.
Now you can see what the block looks like without the bearings in there. I was trying to get you in a visual of the back bearing oil, but as you can see, it's got a little hole in it. So I just have to rotate it to where that hole was originally would be 180. So that way the oil doesn't go through the bearing.
I think it's doing a good job cleaning.
You can tell that they're a different size. One's a little bit smaller, one's a little bit bigger. As far as width, I don't understand why Jafro Mobile didn't use it this way, so I guess I'll find out why.
Yep. Now I don't understand why Jafro Mobile didn't use this yet. Something I'll find out. Is it cutting off my head when I break it?
I want to make sure that I don't put this back to where that oil can go out of that bearing. The entire oil system will lose pressure if one of the holes is open. So now I'm going to put this bearing back in, but as I'm hitting the block, all this rust is falling out of it onto the floor. I really need to take care of that.
Can you go behind me? The bad part, and look, it's like falling on the floor now. Oh. I gotta clean that up somewhat, but overall, oh. So it's kind of gross.
These are just some tools. Alright, so this is the main girdle. I took this out obviously for more access. So now I just got to put in this front bearing. And I'm trying not to damage it too bad, so I'm going to try using this socket instead of the balance shaft.
The flip, man. Is that going in the right way now?
Oh, crap. I'm not paying attention and I just put the thing in the wrong orientation. It's not bad, but it's like, look at it. It's like just slightly off from where the oil hole is. I hope that isn't going to be an issue. Like, obviously the bearing's going to press all the way up against that hole, but I don't know if it would matter that it can, only has to turn a little bit. Let me see if I can just get this out of here real quick. Okay, me tugging on it is not doing anything at all. Let me try hitting it from the backside really quick. Oh, don't try to damage it. And it's not doing anything. Maybe if I use this hole, it would probably damage this hole, but since I'm not actually using the bearing again, this is not working. Alright, maybe if I pry on it from the back with just a screwdriver. Alright, I'll use this awl tool and I pull on it from the front. And that's not doing anything either. Let me use a hammer and tap on it. Kind of like a pull hammer. That's what I need right now. I need a pull hammer. And the block is just rolling towards me, so this is not working very well. Alright, so I skipped, the camera died, and I just kept recording. Alright, I stopped recording. I beat the thing in with the shaft again, and I just kept beating it in. It eventually started going inside of the bearing while I was hitting it, and it just gouged the inside of the bearing. It really doesn't matter. I'm not putting anything in there, but it just looks horrible, and it looks like it was something would get destroyed. I'm hoping no bearings or anything fall, no chips fall into it, so I doubt that it would. It's in, and the oil holes are covered, so I gotta obviously work on the rust, and as well as work on some other things with the engine block as far as cleaning it. Some of the metal shavings were falling into the block, so I'll have to clean that out. And that's about it. So thank you guys so much for watching, and please subscribe. So I put the bearing in.
Okay.
And good thing I don't have to use it again because it's gouged to hell. Look at it. It's severely gouged.
Oh, yeah, nice. What do you mean you don't have to use it again?
I don't have to use it. That's why I put it in. And the hole's right here. I should have clocked it all the way over here, but that hole, I don't know. So when I was hitting it, it moved around. And now it's there.
But I don't understand what you mean by use it again. So
this bearing and then this bearing back here are just for these balance shafts.
Okay.
So this one has 1, this one has 2. This one was originally in the block here, which this part goes through the case and then it gets turned by a gear, and then this spins, and then there's another one that
the
goes
gouging
here.
isn't gonna hurt it?
And yeah, it would. And then the other one would be here, and then this piece goes into there. But I bought a delete kit that cuts basically this out of there, and then you can hold it on the back with something, and then there's no hole, so the oil doesn't go through, and then it just gets rid of this shaft. Because this shaft, that's where it gets its oil. Okay. I was trying to figure out why this hole didn't have a hole in it, but it gets its oil from the shaft.
The top. Yeah.
Through there.
Yeah.
Anyways, so the new stubby shaft on here is now what turns inside there, instead of me cutting this, because the ghetto way would just be cut that, grind it down so that you can hold it, so you can torque it, and that way there's no oil going through. And you have to weld it on the end. So then now there's no. The other thing is I'm going to make I think it's over here. No, it's over here. Make a hole here so that I can put a vent on the on here, so it sucks air out and puts it into the PCV, just like the breather system would be.
Would you do would you do a catch can?
Yeah, I think what I should do, which I've seen, is just a big box catch can kind of deal, and maybe vent it, and then have a drain on the bottom to catch the oil.
I don't know about box, just because I think the more.
So it should be circular.
Because the more engineered ones,
I don't even know where it is.
Actually, run oil through it to keep it hot, to keep the oil warm, so that it doesn't. So it keeps so it keeps it separated. So when it because when it starts to something about when it starts to get cold, it doesn't flow right. So then the vapor stays in the hot air and doesn't really catch it all.
Okay.
I don't know.